One thing I used to love doing whenever I went to a nice hotel was going night swimming. Not every hotel allows it, but I never caused any trouble, so I usually didn't run into any problems. I stopped risking it after this one night though. It was a little bit before midnight and I showed up to the pool expecting it to be empty, but when I walked in, I saw that there was a couple there. It was this big burly looking man with a short beard and thinning red hair, and the woman he was with seemed to be the opposite. She was short and seemed to be enjoying herself much less than she was. I decided to keep to myself as I went in the pool, but even from the other side of the room, I could tell that they had been drinking, or he had at least. Again, I decided to ignore them, but sometimes that isn't enough. As I sat there minding my own business and simply floating around, I overheard the man start talking to the lady he was with about the way that she was dressed. He was talking about how he didn't want other people looking at her, and then I specifically heard him say, like that guy over there. I still tried to keep to myself, and by that point I could feel the tension rising and decided that maybe the pool wasn't the right place for me. I started to get out of the pool and walk over to my towel, and I could hear the man continuing to yell, and by that point, the lady was crying. I didn't want to intrude, but I decided to call out from the side of the room that I was on and just told the man that he should relax and just enjoy himself. I could tell I messed up though when I saw the look of horror that came onto the woman's face as soon as I spoke up. "What did you just say to me?" The man yelled as he walked over to the table that his jacket was on and started to reach inside one of his pockets. I decided to just walk out of the pool room and call it a night without saying another word, but I couldn't escape it that easily. I made it out of the room and about 10 feet down the hallway when I heard the door swing open and close again. I looked back over my shoulder, and the first thing I saw was the man following me with what appeared to be a knife in his hand. I started running down the hallway, and I could hear him chasing behind me. At one point, he had even gotten so close to me that I could hear him speaking to himself as he chased me. "Gonna learn to stay out of my way," is one of the few random things I heard him say as I ran through the halls, hoping that someone would see and intervene. Finally, I rounded a corner and saw a group of people that looked over to me. "Help!" I yelled out. "He's chasing me with a knife." But they didn't do anything as I continued to run by them and saw that I wasn't joking. I don't blame them though. There wouldn't have been much that they could do against a man with a knife. So I kept running. I yelled back to the man, begging for him to stop chasing me, but I don't think there was any reasoning with him at that point. And eventually, we had run so far that I brought us to the front desk right next to the security office. I rushed inside and called out that I was being chased by someone with a knife, and the security guard pulled me further into the room before putting himself between me and the man who was chasing me. The man with the knife was just as out of breath as I was when he was confronted by the security guard, and it was hard to make out what he was saying as he rambled in rage and waved the knife around. And after a minute of trying to reason with him, the security guard was left with no choice and tased him in order to subdue him before calling the police. They arrested the man and found the woman that he was with to make sure that she was okay. She tried apologizing to me and said that he just got that way when he was drinking, but I don't think that's an excuse to try to kill someone who was just trying to swim in the hotel pool. I'm not sure what happened to that man, but I hope he found a way to control himself a bit better. And if not, he's hopefully not in a place where he can hurt anyone anymore. When I was visiting my old college for a sorority alumni reunion, I didn't feel like staying at the house with the rest of the girls and decided to get myself a room at the nearby hotel. I spent most of my time at the house during the day, but I wasn't much of a partier anymore, so as soon as they started making plans, I went back to my room at the hotel. The first night when I returned, it must have been after the shift change, because it was a new person sitting at the front desk that I had to walk by to get to the elevator, and I didn't want to be rude, so as I walked by I said hi, and right away he lit up. He sat up straight and said hi back, and I expected that to be it, but then he asked me if I needed a room for the night. I said thank you and told him I already had a room, and that was when things got weird. He asked me what my room number was, and I must have clearly looked concerned because he tried to brush it off by saying that he could probably upgrade me to a better room because it was apparently slow that weekend. I was happily surprised by the offer, but I now realize that he likely didn't mean it. He just wanted my room number. And I feel like an idiot because I gave it to him. I stood at the desk for a minute while he put some information into the computer, but it was all for nothing because he apparently couldn't find the opening that he was talking about. I said thanks anyways, and then made my way up to the room. I watched TV for a little while before hopping in the shower to get ready for bed, but while I was in the shower, I thought I heard something. I stuck my head out from the curtain to listen a little better because it was almost like I heard the beeping sound of the door unlocking from a card being swiped. I listened closely, but I couldn't hear anything else, so I figured that I must have heard the people next door getting back. I finished up in the shower and then got out, but before I could finish drying off, I heard another noise. This time, I knew that I wasn't just hearing things, and my heart began racing as I could clearly hear the sound of someone moving around my hotel room. I looked around the bathroom and started kicking myself for leaving my phone out on the charger as I realized that I had no way to call for help. I stood in the bathroom trying to figure out what to do and secretly hoping that whoever it was in the room would just disappear. But they didn't. Instead, they must have noticed that the shower stopped, but I didn't come out, because I had to stifle a scream as I heard them approaching the bathroom door. The footsteps stopped right outside of it, and as I got closer to the door, I swear I could hear what sounded like heavy breathing on the other side. I looked around one last time for anything that I could use to help me, but there was nothing. Then I heard it. The sound of the door handle jiggling as if they were trying to get in. I had locked the door before getting into the shower, but I knew it wouldn't hold them back for long. My heart continued to pound, and I could feel the sweat beating up on my forehead as the door handle started to move more and more violently. I almost jumped out of my skin as they started slamming up against the door to get in. I could see it bowing out from the frame with every hit, and eventually, it busted open. I screamed as loud as I could as soon as I saw who was standing on the other side. It was the desk clerk that had asked for my room number earlier. As soon as I screamed, the man ran into the room with his arms out as if he was trying to grab me. Thankfully, the floor was still a bit wet because he didn't think about that and his feet slipped out from under him. The man from the front desk fell forward as I stepped out of the way, and before he could get back up, I ran as fast as I could. I took off out of my room in nothing but a towel and ran down the hall yelling for my life. I was happy to see that I didn't have to run far before finding a security guard. I told them everything that happened and that I was afraid for my life, but they assured me I would be fine. I waited with them until the police arrived, and after checking the security cameras and seeing the man break into my room, he was promptly arrested. Needless to say, I spent the rest of the weekend at the sorority house. There was this abandoned hotel in my city that had been empty for about 3 years before my friends Kelly and Sam and I decided to spend the night there and explore it. We heard that you could get in from the service entrance in the back parking lot, and sure enough, the door was open. We got there at around 5 p.m., and we only managed to make it through the first 2 floors before it got dark out. Because it was abandoned, there was no electricity hooked up, and once the sun went down, we were forced to turn on our flashlights to walk around. And when I say that it got 100 times scarier the second we were forced to use flashlights, I mean it. Our pace slowed down a lot because all of us were fighting to have someone else lead the group, but eventually we made our way through the 3rd floor and onto the 4th one. That was when we heard it. Out of nowhere, as soon as we stepped out of the stairwell, we could hear what sounded like a tapping sound off in the distance. It almost sounded like something was knocking up against something wooden, and it was coming in a sort of rhythmic pattern. I felt Sam's hand on my back as he pushed me forward to start leading the group through the hall. I glared back at him, but I knew that I had to take the lead since I was already there, and I didn't want to look like a chicken. I told myself that the noise was just coming from an old panel that was hanging from the ceiling or something and was blowing in the wind, but even I knew how unlikely that was. Still, I slowly started leading us down the hallway, which ended up being closer to the sound. But for some reason, it wasn't getting louder. It was as if no matter how far we walked, the noise always stayed the same volume even though we knew we were getting closer to the source. I could feel goosebumps forming on my arms and the back of my neck as we kept walking, but it just kept moving. As we walked past one of the rooms, though, all three of us stopped in unison and looked at the door to the right of us. "It's coming from in there," Kelly said as all of us stared at the door. I looked at my friends, wondering what we should do, and that was when Sam decided to step forward. Before reaching out to the door, he looked over, and I'll never forget the smirk on his face as he said that it was probably just a pipe or something. He seemed so optimistic. That all went away as soon as the door opened, though. Sam turned the handle and the door swung inward as a heinous stench crept out towards us. We all froze as we looked into the room and saw a mostly decayed body laying in the middle of the floor between the door and the bed. It took a second for it all to set in, and for us to realize what we were looking at. But as soon as one of us started running, we all took off screaming. We ran down the hallway and back toward the staircase before making our way back out of the hotel. We knew we would get in trouble for breaking in, but we knew we had to tell the authorities. So I called my mom and told her what happened, and she helped us get in contact with the police. They all met us at the hotel and they went to examine the body after talking to us. To this day, there are still two big mysteries for us though, and that's what happened to that man and what was that tapping sound that brought us to his room. But I guess some things we'll just never know. 2 years later, that hotel was torn down and it's now a parking lot for the nearby mall.